Welcome back, you beautiful paradox. You walking contradiction. You impossible equation they couldn't solve. Welcome back to the ones who broke every prediction, shattered every assumption, destroyed every careful calculation they made about who you were supposed to become. They studied your anger, didn't they? They documented your rage, cataloged your pain, built entire defense systems around the monster they were certain you'd transform into. They hired specialists, consulted experts, created protocols for the explosion they knew was coming. And then you did something absolutely unforgivable, something that broke their minds more than any outburst ever could. You smiled. You showed up calm, centered, radiating peace like a weapon they had no training to defend against. And they absolutely lost their minds. Let's talk about what really happened here, because this isn't just about defying expectations. This is about the moment you became something far more dangerous than the beast they prepared for. See, they spent years building walls, constructing barriers, preparing speeches and interventions for your inevitable breakdown. They had the scripts ready, the concerned faces practiced, the "we're here for you" performances rehearsed to perfection. They knew exactly how to handle your explosion, because explosions are predictable, containable, manageable. But peace? Peace from someone who had every right to burn the world down? That's not in the manual. That's not something you can prepare for. That's the kind of power that makes trained professionals forget their training, makes confident people stutter, makes the entire system glitch out trying to process what just walked through the door. They watched you endure betrayal after betrayal, humiliation after humiliation, and they waited. They positioned themselves at a safe distance, close enough to watch but far enough to run when you finally snapped. They told each other stories about your coming darkness, whispered predictions about your transformation into everything they feared. Just wait, they said. Just wait until they break. Just wait until all that pain turns into something ugly. They wanted it, needed it, actually, because your rage would have validated every assumption they made, every judgment they passed, every time they treated you like a ticking bomb. Your anger would have been their permission slip to say, "See? We knew they were dangerous. We knew they couldn't handle it. But you magnificent anomaly, you refused to give them that satisfaction. Instead of the monster they trained for, you showed up emanating the kind of calm that only comes from someone who's already walked through hell and came out the other side holding flowers. You didn't just refrain from attacking. You radiated something they couldn't compute. Kindness from a position of strength. Forgiveness from a place of power. Peace, not as surrender but as a choice. A deliberate, calculated, absolutely terrifying choice. And that broke them. Because now, they're standing there in full armor. Weapons drawn, shields raised, ready for war. And you're just existing. Smiling. Unbothered. Unshaken. Offering them grace they never earned. Showing them mercy they never extended. Treating them with a gentleness that exposes every cruel calculation they ever made against you. You want to know what's really happening in their minds right now? Panic. Pure, unfiltered, existential panic. Because they built their entire identity around being prepared for your darkness. They crafted their self-image as the ones who could handle you, contain you, survive you. Their confidence was borrowed from the assumption that they knew what you'd become. But now they're face to face with something they have no reference point for. A soul that transmuted poison into medicine. A heart that should be stone but instead beats with impossible compassion. a mind that experienced every reason to become cruel and chose wisdom instead. You're not just unexpected, you're unprecedented. And that's making them question everything they thought they knew about pain, trauma, and transformation. Here's what really gets me about this whole situation. They didn't just prepare for your anger, they invested in it. They built their entire social structure around the coming storm of your rage. Some of them positioned themselves as future victims, already crafting the stories they'd tell about surviving you. Others set themselves up as saviors, the ones who'd talk you down from the edge, the heroes of the narrative, where you were always destined to be the villain. They had roles assigned, scripts written, even emotional responses preloaded and ready to deploy. But none of them, not a single one, prepared for the possibility that you might become something beautiful, that you might alchemize every ounce of suffering into strength, that you might emerge not broken but refined. And now look at them, scrambling, confused, completely disoriented. The victim narratives don't work because you're not attacking. The savior complexes have nowhere to land because you don't need saving. Their carefully constructed defenses are useless because you're not bringing war, you're bringing truth. And truth, real truth from someone who earned it through fire, that's more devastating than any tantrum could ever be. You're not screaming at them about what they did. You're showing them through your presence who you became despite what they did. You're not demanding apologies. You're living in such a way that makes them apologize to themselves every time they think about you. You're not seeking revenge. You're being so authentically powerful that their betrayal of you has become their own punishment. Let's go deeper into their nightmare, because this is where it gets truly poetic. They thought the worst-case scenario was you becoming violent, aggressive, destructive. They feared the version of you that would lash out, burn bridges, seek vengeance. But what they're experiencing now is so much worse for them. They're facing the version of you that makes violence unnecessary, that makes aggression look primitive, that makes revenge seem like a waste of time. You've become the person who looked at every weapon they could have wielded and said, "No thanks." That beautiful, thriving garden you've cultivated from the ashes of what they tried to destroy, it's standing as permanent testimony to their failure. Because here's the thing they're slowly, painfully realizing. When you become a monster, people can fight you. When you become bitter, people can avoid you. When you become cruel, people can vilify you. But when you become genuinely, authentically at peace, when you transcend the cycle of hurting people, when you break the chain instead of passing it forward, there's nothing they can do. No defense works against someone who refuses to attack. No armor protects against someone who approaches with open hands. No strategy defeats someone who's already won the only battle that matters, the one inside themselves. You're not playing their game anymore, and that makes you undefeatable. They're looking at you now with a mixture of awe and terror, trying to reconcile the person standing in front of them with the monster their paranoia created. Every smile you give is a confrontation. Every kind word is a mirror, forcing them to see their own darkness. Every moment of your peace is a spotlight on their chaos. You don't have to do anything except exist in your truth, and just by being authentically healed, authentically whole, authentically free, you're dismantling every false narrative they built about you. The gap between who they said you were and who you actually are has become a chasm they can't cross, a divide they created with their judgment and you expanded with your growth. And oh, the irony is delicious, isn't it? They wanted you weak so they could feel strong. They wanted you broken so they could feel whole. They wanted you bitter so they could feel justified. But you refused. You took every single reason they gave you to become small and used it as fuel to become expansive instead. You took every betrayal they thought would harden you and let it soften you in all the right ways. You took every prediction of your darkness and used it as a challenge to find more light. Not naive light, not innocent light, but the kind of light that only exists on the other side of shadow-earned light. Chosen light. Powerful light that they have no choice but to acknowledge, even as it exposes everything they are. So now what happens? Now they're stuck in a reality where all their preparations were not just wrong, but hilariously, cosmically, perfectly wrong. The bunker they built for the explosion sits empty while you walk past it throwing seeds. The speeches they rehearsed for your breakdown go unspoken while they stammer trying to process your breakthrough. The intervention they planned becomes irrelevant because you already intervened in your own story and rewrote the ending they were certain was coming. They're left holding useless weapons, wearing pointless armor, ready for a battle that will never come because you already declared peace, and peace, real peace from real power, always wins. Let me tell you what's keeping them up at night now. It's not fear of what you might do to them. It's the realization of what you already did to their worldview. You shattered their understanding of cause and effect. Pain was supposed to create pain. Trauma was supposed to create trauma. Hurt people were supposed to hurt people. That was the rule, the pattern, the inevitable cycle they based their entire belief system on. But you broke the cycle so completely that now they have to question everything. If you could transmute that much suffering into that much peace, what does that say about their own choices? If you could experience that much betrayal and still choose trust, what's their excuse for their bitterness? If you could be given every reason to become a monster and chose to become something magnificent instead, what does that reveal about every time they chose differently? You're not just living your life anymore. You're a walking challenge to their excuses. Every day you exist in peace is another day. Their justifications for their own darkness look weaker. Every moment you choose, grace is another moment their grudges look petty. Every time you extend compassion is another time their cruelty looks like the choice it always was. You're not preaching at them. You're not lecturing them. You're not even thinking about them most of the time. But your very existence has become a sermon they can't unhear, a lesson they can't unlearn, a standard they can never unsee. And that's the real reason they're panicking. Not because you're attacking them, but because you're outgrowing them so visibly, so undeniably, that they can't pretend not to notice. Here's where we arrive at the most devastating truth of all. They didn't just want you to become a monster for their protection. They needed you to become a monster for their comfort. Because if someone who experienced what you experienced can become what you became, then every person who uses their pain as an excuse is revealed. Every person who weaponizes their trauma is exposed. Every person who says, "I can't help how I am because of what happened to me," suddenly sounds like they're making a choice, not stating a fact. You're living proof that transformation is possible, that healing is achievable, that peace can be chosen no matter what preceded it. And for people who've built their entire identity around their wounds, around their justified anger, around their earned right to bitterness, your existence is absolutely terrifying. They wanted to point at your rage and say, "See, that's what happens when you break someone." Instead, they have to witness your peace and hear the unspoken question. If they can heal from that, why haven't you? They wanted your darkness to be the proof that some pain is unforgivable, some hurt is permanent, some damage is irreparable. Instead, your light is evidence that forgiveness is always possible, healing is always available, and damage can always be transmuted into strength. You didn't just defy their expectations. You destroyed their philosophy. You didn't just surprise them. You invalidated every limiting belief they used to make sense of their own stagnation. And now they're scrambling, desperate to either discredit you or learn from you, with most too proud for the latter and too honest for the former. Let's talk about the specific moment they realized they were wrong. It wasn't gradual. It was a snap, a sudden recognition that hit them like cold water. Maybe it was the first time they tried to provoke you and you responded with kindness. Maybe it was when they braced for your anger and received your smile instead. Maybe it was when they prepared their defense and you asked them how they were doing, genuinely, without a trace of sarcasm or hidden agenda. Whatever the moment was, it broke something in their mental model. The pattern recognition that's supposed to keep humans safe started screaming alerts. This doesn't fit. This doesn't compute. This person should be hostile, but they're not. Danger, danger, danger. Except the danger isn't you. The danger is to their comfortable worldview. That moment when you showed up as a version of yourself they didn't prepare for, that's when the real power shift happened. Not the power they feared, where you dominate through force. The power they couldn't conceive of, where you'd influence through presence. You're not trying to control them, convince them, or convert them. You're just being so authentically yourself, so genuinely at peace, so real in your healing that it creates a gravitational field they can't escape. People are drawn to authenticity like moths to flame, and you're not performing peace, you're embodying it. You're not pretending to be healed, you're demonstrating healing. And that demonstration is more convincing than any argument, more powerful than any speech, more transformative than any confrontation could ever be. They built defenses for your anger, but they have no protection against your love. Not romantic love, not even personal love necessarily. The love that comes from someone who's been to hell and back and decided that bitterness is boring. The love that emerges when you've seen the worst of humanity and choose to believe in the best anyway. The love that only exists in people who've had every reason to close their hearts and forced them open instead. That kind of love, it penetrates every wall, bypasses every defense, dissolves every argument. It's not aggressive, so it can't be fought. It's not weak, so it can't be exploited. It's just there, constant, unshakable, utterly unafraid of their judgment, because it's already survived their rejection. And here's what makes this whole situation so beautifully ironic. By preparing for your monster, they created the perfect conditions for your emergence as something far more powerful. All that time they spent building defenses, you spent building yourself. All that energy they invested in fear, you invested in growth. All those moments they wasted on worry, you used for work on your inner world. They were so busy preparing for an external threat that they never noticed the internal transformation happening in plain sight. And now the threat they feared never materialized, but something far more challenging to their ego appeared instead. A reminder that they wasted all that time and energy on phantoms while you were actually doing the work of becoming. Let me paint you a picture of what's happening in rooms you're not in. They gather, these people who knew you before, and someone mentions your name. The energy shifts immediately. there's a pause. A collective holding of breath, as everyone waits to see who'll be brave enough to speak first. And when someone does, it's never what they planned to say. It's not the criticism they rehearsed or the judgment they prepared. It's confusion wrapped in reluctant admiration. Did you see them? Did you hear how they handled that? Did you notice how different they are? Your peace is a referendum on their chaos. Your growth is a question mark next to their stagnation. Your healing is an accusation they can't shake. If they could change that much, what's stopping you? The funniest part, and I mean genuinely hilarious, is watching them try to diminish what you've accomplished. It's fake, some say, desperately clinging to skepticism. It's a phase, others insist, praying you'll relapse into something they can understand. It's spiritual bypassing, the educated ones claim, using therapy language to mask their discomfort. But the words sound hollow even to them because they can see it, feel it, know it in their bones. What you've achieved is real. The peace you carry isn't performance, it's presence. The strength you embody isn't pretense. It's proof. Proof that transformation is possible. Proof that healing is achievable. Proof that you can be handed every reason to become bitter and still choose better. And that proof, that undeniable evidence of human potential they're witnessing in real time, it's demolishing every excuse they've ever made. They wanted a monster. Because monsters are simple. Monsters can be feared, fought, fled from. Monsters fit into boxes with clear labels. Dangerous, damaged, destructive. They had a whole vocabulary ready for your monstrosity. But what vocabulary exists for someone who turned their pain into power without hurting others? What label fits someone who emerged from trauma more compassionate than before? What box contains a person who looked at every reason to become hard and chose to become strong instead? There's a difference, you know. Hard is brittle, defensive, closed. Strong is flexible, open, resilient. They expected hard. You became strong. And now they're left speechless, searching for words in a language that was never designed to describe what you've become.